Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to be dividing polynomials, and this will be part one. But before we begin that, let's review a couple of items. So remember, if I have something like 12 divided by 6, and so we all know that 12 divided by 6 is 2. Now, I could do this by long division. So if I say 6 divided into 12, so remember 12 divided by 6. 12, 6. 12 divided by 6 is the same thing as saying 6 divided into 12. And so 6 divided into 12 is 2. Remember, I'm doing long division. 2 times 6 is 12. And remember, you subtract. 12 minus 12 is 0. Now, terminology. This 12 right here, that's called the dividend. This 6 is called the divisor. This 2 is called the quotient, and the 0 here is called the remainder. Alright, so that's the terminology that you've learned in a previous course. Okay, so another thing you're going to need in terms of review when we start dividing these polynomials is that you have to do some things mentally. So mentally, if you want to simplify, let's say x to the 10th power divided by x to the 4th power. So remember, using the quotient rule, when I divide like bases, I subtract exponents. So I need for you to think about this in your head. So 10 subtract 4 is 6, so this becomes x to the 6th power. All right? So you're going to use this idea as we do these long divisions when we start dividing polynomials. So again, if you have, let's say, m to the 6 divided by m, and then remember, you're still dividing like bases, so you can subtract exponents. If there's no exponent there, it's understood to be a 1. And so 6 minus 1 is 5, so I get m to the 5th power. Okay? All right, now, let's start. The first thing we're going to do in part 1 is we're going to divide a polynomial by a monomial. Right, so I'm going to divide a polynomial by a monomial. And so, for example, now the directions could be something like perform the division. That's what my math lab will probably say. It could just say divide. Okay, something like that. So number 1, let's suppose we had 16x to the 8th power plus 5x to the 6th power divided by, let's say, x. All right, so I'm dividing this polynomial, which contains two terms, so that this binomial divided by this monomial. Okay, so one term. This is the monomial. So whenever you have a monomial in the denominator, that's the easy kind. So you're just going to divide. You're just going to write these as separate fractions. So in other words, you're going to say 16x to the 8th divided by x plus 5x to the 6th divided by x. Okay, so that's the easy kind. Now, once you rewrite it as two fractions, then you're going to use what we did here, this middle part. So we're going to get 16. X to the 8th divided by x is x to the 7th. And when you divide like bases, you subtract exponents. Plus, and then that'll be 5, because 5 over 1 is 5. And then 6 minus 1 is 5. So it'll be 5x to the 5th. Okay? All right. Now, number 2. Suppose we had 26 x to the 4th power plus 32 x to the 2nd minus 10x plus 8 divided by 2. All right. So again, I'm dividing a polynomial by a monomial. That's the easy kind. This part is the easy kind. You're going to write it as separate fractions, and then you're going to simplify. So this can become 26x to the fourth divided by 2 plus 32x squared divided by 2 minus 10x divided by 2 plus 8 divided by 2. And then you're going to simplify. So that's going to be 26 divided by 2 is 13, so I get 13x to the fourth. And then 32 divided by 2 is 16, so I get 16x squared. 10 divided by 2 is 5, so I get minus 5x. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay? All right, number 3. Okay, now, let's suppose we had this. Okay, number 3. Suppose we had 8 p to the 6th power plus 14 p to the 10th power divided by, let's say, 2p. All right? So notice it's getting a little bit more progressively difficult, although it's still not difficult. We're just adding things to the denominator. So again, this is still a polynomial divided by a monomial. Whenever you have a monomial, one term in the denominator, that's the easy kind. You just have to remember, hey, I got to break this down into two fractions or into fractions. And so I'm going to get 8p to the 6th divided by 2p plus 14p to the 10th divided by 2p. Okay, and then all you do is ask yourself, well, let's first of all reduce these coefficients. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's going to be 4. P to the 6 divided by p, that's where that middle part comes in. 6 minus 1 is 5, so that's 4p to the 5th. Plus, and then here, 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then p to the 10th divided by p is p to the 9th. 10 minus 1 is 5. When you divide like bases, subtract exponents. And so there's your answer. Okay, number 4. Suppose you had, let's say you had negative 12 p to the 6th power plus, let's say, 16 p to the 8th minus 4, all divided by 8p to the 4th. Okay? All right, now, again, I'm dividing a polynomial by a monomial. So you're going to break it down into separate fractions. So the first thing you should do is say the first term, which is this, divided by the denominator, plus the second term, which is this, divided by the denominator, and then minus 4 divided by the denominator. Okay? And so here, now notice when we did this one, 8 divided by 2 was a nice integer. It was 4. 14 divided by 2 was an integer. It was 7. But when I do this, 12 divided by 8, it's not an integer, but I can reduce. And so you're gonna notice that 4 goes into both 8 and negative 12. So that's going to be a negative 3, and that's going to be a 2. Okay? And then here, mentally, 6 minus 4 is 2, so p to the 6th divided by p to the 4th is p squared. So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get negative 3, 3 halves, negative 3 halves, p to the 2nd power. All right, now, plus, okay, over here, this is going to be a nice one because 16 divided by 8 is 2. And then p to the 8th divided by p to the 4th is p to the 4th. 8 subtract 4 is 4. So I get 2p to the 4th. Now over here, the only variable that you see appears in the denominator. So you leave it there. But I can reduce the 4 and the 8. 4 into 4 is 1. 4 into 8 is 2. Now remember, it's a good idea to, when you cross this out, you put a 1 there, because this fraction right here is going to be minus 1 over 2p to the 4th. And so there's your answer. All right, now let's look at this one. Suppose we had number 5. Suppose you had negative 15y to the 4th plus 10y cubed minus 15y squared plus 5y divided by 5y. Alright, so again, I'm dividing a polynomial by monomial. So write it as separate fractions. That's the easy kind. So I get negative 15y to the 4th over 5y plus 10y cubed divided by 5y minus 15y squared divided by 5y plus 5y divided by 5y. Alright, now let's reduce and simplify. Negative 15 divided by 5 is a negative 3. Y to the 4th divided by y, when you divide like bases, subtract exponents, do that mentally. So that's going to be negative 3 y cubed plus this right here, 10 divided by 5 is 2. Y cubed divided by y is y squared. That's 2y squared. Minus 15 divided by 5 is 3. Y squared divided by y is just y. 2 minus 1 is y. 1. So you get y. And then plus 5y divided by itself is just 1. And so there's your answer. All right, number 6. Okay, so number 6, you have negative 24x to the 5th plus 18x squared minus 12x minus 4 divided by 8x. All right, so again, write it down as separate, rewrite this as separate fractions. So this is going to be negative 24x to the 5th divided by 8x plus 18x squared divided by 8x minus 12x divided by 8x minus 4 divided by 8x. And so you're going to get, when you reduce this part here, that's just going to be a negative 3. Negative 24 divided by 8 is a negative 3. And x to the 5th divided by x is x to the 4th. So I'm going to get negative 3 x to the 4th. All right, over here, I'm going to have to reduce this. So both of these numbers here are divisible by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4. 2 divided by 18 is 9. And then x squared divided by x is just x. So I'm going to get plus 9/4 x. Okay, and then minus. Over here, again, reduce. These two coefficients are divisible by 4. So 4 into 8 is 2. 4 into 12 is 3. And x divided by x is just 1. Now remember, when you divide like bases, remember that when you had this, it's really x to the 1 minus 1, which is x to the 0, which is 1. So that's why anything divided by itself is 1. And also remember, a non-zero number raised to the 0 power is 1. So that's going to be just minus 3/2. And then minus. All right, now over here, the only thing, you see there are no variable in the numerator, so the only variable that appears is in the denominator, so leave it where it is, but I can reduce the 4 and the 8. So that's going to be 4 to 4 is 1, 4 and 8 is 2, and so you get minus 1 over 2x. And so there's your answer. Okay, number 7. Suppose you had negative 8 x to the 4th power plus 24 x to the, let's say, 6th power divided by, let's say, 6x to the 5th. 6x to the 5th. And also, let's do this. Let's put right here plus or minus, let's say, 12x to the 5th. Let's make it 24. 24x to the 5th. All right, so negative 8x to the 4th plus 24x to the 6th minus 24 x to the 5th. All right, so again, you're dividing all these by this monomial. So I'm going to say negative 8x to the fourth. So each term in the numerator divided by the denominator. Now again, you're only doing this because this is monomial. Divided by 6x to the fifth plus 24x to the sixth divided by 6x to the fifth minus 24x to the fifth divided by 6x to the fifth. Okay? Alright, now, okay, so here, we got to be a little bit careful with this term. So here, I can reduce the negative 8 into 6. They're both divisible by 2. So that's going to be 2 into 6 is 3. 2 into negative 8 is negative 4. Alright, now, remember when you're dividing, like base, subtract exponent. So really, this right here becomes, we have to go ahead and write it out just to show you. This right here becomes negative 4/3 x to the 4 minus 5. Okay? And so that becomes negative 4/3 x to the negative 1. And remember the negative exponent rule from a previous lesson, that x to the negative p is 1 over x to the p. So you want to make, you don't want any negative exponents in your answer, so you want to rewrite it with a positive exponent. So you got to remember x to the negative p is 1 over x to the p. So this right here becomes negative 4/3 times 1 over x. X to the negative 1 is 1 over x. And so writing this as one fraction, that's negative 4 divided by 3x. Okay? And then over here, 6 divided by 24 divided by 6 is 4. And then x to the 6th divided by x to the 5th, that will be x to the 1st. So this right here becomes 4x to the 1st, which remember is just 4x, and so I'm just going to bring it down. So that will be plus 4x right here. Over here, 24 divided by 6 is 4. X to the 5th divided by x to the 5th, and that goes back to this one here. X divided by x is 1. So x to the 5th divided by itself is 1. But remember, if you use a quotient rule, that really means x to the 5th minus 5. 5 minus 5. Divide like basis, subtract exponents, which is x to the 0, which is 1. So any non-zero number raised to the 0 power is 1. And so that's just going to be minus 4, just minus 4. And then we'll just break that down. And so this part right here is your answer. So in my math lab, you're going to see one like this. So don't forget this little part right here. You're going to use this rule, the negative exponent rule. Okay, all right, so that's going to take care of this part 1, which was dividing. We're on the lesson where we're dividing polynomials, but this was dividing a polynomial by monomial.